I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Westford Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. This meeting is being recorded by Westford Cable Access TV. The first agenda item is open forum. Do any members of the commission have something for open forum? Matt?
I have one suggestion. On that announcement you just made regarding the open meeting law and whether the meeting's recorded, I'd add it right in there under open forum so we guarantee we'll read it every time. What you just said was fine. It's got to be a verbal announcement, I guess, according to the town council. But we should put it right on our permanent agenda, right?
Yeah, just as a reminder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can add.
I think that's a good idea.
And if ever Westford Cat is not there, I'll volunteer to do the recording, so we'll read it every time.
Well, I do. Well, I mean, I have a voice recorder anyway.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I do
Okay.
for minutes purposes.
Okay, good.
So.
But yeah, that's good because that way we will use consistent language.
Okay. I have a couple things for open forum. First special town meeting is Monday, October 16th at 7 p.m. in the Westford Academy Gymnasium. Please come and participate in the civic process. Additionally, as requested by the Land Use Department, the MBTA Communities Survey is online on the town's website. Please fill it out and provide your thoughts.
Did that, been there.
Okay. Do members of the audience have anything for open forum?
Yeah, so I just have a quick update on my Eagle project.
Say who you are. Tell us who you are.
I'm Connor Curran. I was here almost a year ago back in, I think it was November. And I presented my proposal for my Eagle project, and I'm happy to say that I finally finished it, thanks to much help from Mr. Salem. I've got a couple photos of my Eagle project, and I don't know if...
Yep.
Oh, they're up there. Perfect. That saves the paper. But yeah, so I basically built two signs in the Stony Brook Conservation Land, and the signs contain information about the species of fish that could be found in the water there. My goal was to kind of bring attention to the aquatic species that call Westford home, and yeah, it took almost a year. Again, I was here a year ago, but I'm happy to say it's finished now, and I'd like to thank the Conservation Commission for, helping me out and allowing me to complete my Eagle project.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Salem.
Anything we need to sign or do anything?
Nope.
Okay, great.
Okay, moving on to our other 7 p.m. agenda item, acquisition of map 45, parcel 41, lot 000, the house and barn parcel.
So we have, last night at the select board meeting, they accepted and endorsed the deed, the commissioner's deed for the acquisition of this parcel. Included in the meeting packet was my memo to them with brief history of our attempts to acquire this property, the deed, and also just in any case, if people didn't know where it was, it's the nice trapezoidal property off of Sawmill Road. And in speaking with town council, I saw three specific kind of actions that, if the commission votes for, can further the process. One being accepting and endorsing the deed. That's an important piece to all this. Additionally, authorizing the expenditure of CPA funds for a plot plan to be prepared and the property surveyed. Baseline documentation for the conservation restriction, and then just any associated costs and kind of getting the conservation restriction prepared and filed. And lastly, as the Westford Conservation Trust has so graciously volunteered to be the grantee to the myriad of conservation restrictions that for when the town has acquired land, request the commission to authorize engaging with them to see if they will once again be the CR grantee, and if so, I'm sure that the MOU, which was previously executed between the commission and the trust, would be updated and come at a future meeting. Okay, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to
Jim?
answer.
As far as the surveying and the baseline documentation, does that specifically include permanent markings of the bounds?
The surveying would have the corners.
Because we were out, when we went out there to get the estimate with the, what is it called? With
The appraisal?
Yeah, the
appraisal,
appraisal,
when we were
yeah.
out there with the appraiser, we couldn't find all of them. I think we found one
Yeah,
corner
in
of that.
reviewing the MOU between the commission and the trust before the meeting, one of kind of the standards
They want
is
one- they want the bounds.
Right, is to have, you know,
Yes.
the bounds, the boundary and the, or more so the corners marked so that it is easy to find a
Yes.
boundary marker and, you know, determine encroachments. Granted, you know, as seen from, on the GIS map included, certainly,
There's not much else out there to see it in relation to, so.
right,
we gotta
well,
make
I mean, but
make it
there,
obvious.
the threat of encroachment certainly is lower here than other parcels, but all the same, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good practice and certainly would serve us well and in moving forward, but I can
And then
make a note for that.
Second item, over the last probably 10 years, while this has been being discussed, we've had lots of executive sessions regarding this property. Almost, I would expect that all of those minutes would now be available for
Yep,
publication.
but they will be, I'll figure out the process for
Some way
releasing.
to
a-
search it for,
Exactly, yeah. That's on the next,
Okay.
you know, let's get
Phase
it.
two.
Yeah, have it signed, get it recorded, and then move on to, you know,
Releasing those
the
minutes.
process, you know,
Yeah.
making sure the process is,
File them,
and
so.
open meeting law is complied with.
So I should read the suggested motion?
Yes, I mean, I think if you're, kind of the language on the, I think it's different. So that was for the select board, so it
Okay.
would be these three. I mean,
Okay.
can either be handled separately or all as one.
So, can I have a motion to approve and execute the deed for the acquisition of, map 45, parcel 41, lot 0?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to authorize the expenditure of CPA funds for surveying, baseline documentation, and any other associated costs related thereto?
marking bounds.
Yes, that's in the survey.
Somebody else did
Yes.
that.
It isn't, where's this written down?
I mean,
'Cause we have lots of properties with no markings on them. And they're a pain to.
I mean, so it was discussed and be in the MOU for the Conservation Trust to accept the beast conservation restriction grantee.
Alright,
They,
part of
you
it.
know,
The money we're expending right now includes.
yes,
meets
the
in
surveying
bounds.
was to
Okay.
include the boundary
Okay.
marking.
I think someone else should make the motion
So
since
moved.
I'm on CPA.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. And lastly, can I have a motion to authorize, for authorization to request the Westford Conservation Trust be the conservation restriction guarantee?
Grantee.
Grantee.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's it for motions on this one,
There's 3 pages to sign. Please make sure to,
okay?
maybe if there's anybody.
Any comments from the
Peter.
audience?
Yes, thank you. Peter Mahler, former long-term member of the Conservation Commission. I just want to thank you guys. I've been working on this since I joined the commission in 2000. Bill Hum and I first started on this, and we just went at it year after year with her and never got anywhere. But thanks for keeping on this. It's got to be one of the most beautiful parcels in Westford. So thanks again. I appreciate all your due diligence.
Thank
We
you.
miss you.
You, Peter?
Thank you for your efforts as well.
Yeah.
Yep. So, moving on to our 7:05 PM agenda item, continued public hearing and issued order of conditions for Haley, 7 Island Path Road.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Paige Haley, the applicant.
Nick Pauling from Goldsmith Preston Ringwell. How's everyone doing? All right.
Good.
Let me take it away.
Yeah.
Sure. So, nice seeing you all. I know I'm stepping into this application for Jim. Since the last hearing, we've produced what's on the page, on the screen, dewatering kind of sequence, detail, structure, just to make sure that if we encounter some digging the foundations. We can talk about how we're going to dewater properly and not affect the resource area. What this plan is a generic plan. It outlines some key highlights, but it does rely on the contractor providing a detailed means and methods, based on their own means and methods, to the conservation agent prior to actually taking dewatering action. Since the last hearing, we've also reviewed some of the special conditions that Matt came over. We had very minor comments and provided those. And, at this point, I think that we've met everything that was asked of the commission. I think we've answered all the outstanding items, but I can certainly tap dance around any outstanding items if you had.
Members of the commission have any questions?
No, just the couple comments that Nick and their team brought up regarding the special conditions. One is related to the BLSF elevation at 171. In the draft special condition, it references 171. The lomas are based off of 171.5. So for making that inclusion, there was another finding about no work is proposed within 30 feet of the water body other than the placement of erosion controls. I would just like to remove that because work is proposed within the work for the existing house is to be in the existing footprint is closer than 30 feet. And then there was one finding about maintaining the that work, the proposed dwelling will remain outside the 55-foot no build buffer, but that is also the existing house is within and the work is within the existing footprint, so I'd strike that.
Jim?
I had a couple of concerns. On the same page that you're on right now, that really long commission acknowledges that. It's about 2 lines down below the 30-foot distance.
Yep.
3 lines down. It was too long and convoluted to read in one whole breath, and I didn't really understand it.
So this comes back to the applicant, and the plan was prepared with a baseline, with a bordering land subject to flooding elevation of the effective FEMA maps. Under the regulations and definition of bordering land subject to flooding, it's the most current available data. And so there's a different, which the plan is more conservative than the plan using the effective flood insurance rate map is more conservative than the preliminary flood insurance rate map that was released in June. And as such, I didn't want to say the commission finds the bordering land subject to flooding is correct if, because there is kind of this discrepancy between.
Yeah.
If I could.
Go for it.
So, I stamped the plans. I read the regulations as I have to show the current effective limit of the floodplain, which currently goes within the footprint of the structure. There's a preliminary map available that it looks like, due to new study or calculations, FEMA is going to be revising that panel, and that would move the floodplain line closer to the pond and out of the structure. Unfortunately, that's preliminary. It has not effectively been issued. So I looked at it as the effective current line is in the building. It's also a conservative approach from the standpoint of the foundation has to account for being within that zone if she pulled the building permit. And if for whatever reason the preliminary panel was issued and became effective tomorrow, she wouldn't have to account for the structure being in the floodplain. So it's one of those, it's easier.
Now it could be better later.
Correct, and it's easier to
Understand
go.
both of those explanations.
Beautiful.
But I dare anybody to read this paragraph in one breath. In one
Very well
breath.
written.
In one breath.
I'll stick up for
In
him.
one breath. Any takers? No, really, you think you can read that paragraph in one breath?
Oh,
Come on, we're not
sorry,
gonna
I
do
was
that.
laughing.
It's one sentence, and it doesn't, I can understand what you were both explaining.
Yeah.
I mean, if I revised it so that there is additional punctuation which would indicate, I mean, commas, you can take a breath at a
Do you have a, do you have a modification?
Oh, I
or-
know, because I didn't know what it meant.
Oh, okay.
All right, well, that's
I think there
that's
should be-
problematic, is that paragraph. And
Okay.
then the other one is, this is the property that's all stone, right? There's no grass field. Special conditions 22, 23, and 24 are almost all about lawns and grass clippings.
But leaves as well, landscape waste,
Well, it's- Right,
So-
leaves, but the plan is there's not gonna be any grass, right? It's
No.
gonna be gravel. So, I don't think we need to include anything about grass clippings, but we probably should include things in the basic plan about gravel, or rocks, whatever. That was it.
Marilyn?
Since we're gonna have this conundrum maybe 10 years down the road and whatever, would it be useful to have an asterisk and explain at the very bottom the way it is now and the way it's, the difference between the
big
two?
paragraph?
Yeah, because something's gonna happen and someone's gonna ask this question.
Yep.
And I'll be gone. You may not be.
I'll just say I don't understand it.
Right, but if you had a note to that effect on the bottom, just to explain it.
Are we talking
Would-
about,
Talking about the new,
so the acknowledge, so we're talking about the finding rather than Jim's comment on the three conditions?
Right.
right, but.
Okay.
But we're recognizing, that there's something else coming down the
And
pipe.
that actually is, so
Yeah.
this right here, that's currently dated 6/8/2023 is the one coming. And this one here that ends in E, that's dated 2010.
Would it be
is the
useful to
current.
have an asterisk and right at the bottom say, just to have it, so everybody knew
condition,
at this
sure.
time, it's okay at this time?
I
There'll be no,
mean, as proposed, this satisfies
okay,
the
then I'm going.
effective
Okay.
map, the
Okay.
effective flood insurance
Okay,
rate map,
okay.
and
Then I withdraw
the
what I was
performance
gonna say.
standards for
I just was
bordering
looking
land
for
subject
less
to flooding.
confusion down the road. Okay,
The confusion down the road would be if you had tried to go with a preliminary map, and then you're introducing uncertainty.
okay,
Or that they scrapped the preliminary and it remained where it is.
Yeah.
okay.
So Jim, why don't you just put a period after dwelling footprint and before the, and then just make the a capital, T on the. And then you at least split it up to two sentences. Almost readable.
Just read it. This, when conditions and findings and things like this are not clear, that's the stuff that kills us later down the road. If there's a problem, if everything goes smoothly, no problem, everything's great. But if there's a problem, someone's gonna be left trying to read that and interpret it.
I mean, at that point, I would, expect somebody who's in my position and to,
Are you leaving us?
Not anytime soon. I got a while to, well, you're stuck with me for a while. But, that's why there's meeting minutes, that's why there's, clarification can be, between the meeting minutes and the meeting recordings, that's why we have.
Although they're only subject to the order of conditions.
Right.
They're not subject to our discussion in the meeting,
to
so.
provide,
But as long as there's
as-
clarity that somebody can interpret this going forward, and you believe that's sufficient, then it should be sufficient.
I agree with a period after dwelling footprint, capitalize the T.
I mean, that works.
Okay. So with the conditions that refer to landscaping activities, it's part of the boilerplate, and we don't want to say anything about you're going to change your plans, but I think it's, it refers to herbicide, it refers to leaves which you're likely to have. Does it do any harm to leave them in place?
I don't mind leaving it in, because what happens if somebody else decides, you decide you want to move or do whatever, somebody else comes in, at least it exists in the orders that were issued.
Okay.
So, it may not be the current plan, but somebody might have a different plan down the road, and these order conditions would anticipate or take that into account.
Okay. I did have a question on condition 38. Let's see, it says, the third line where it talks about and shall be approved by the project engineer, and I just could not follow what was going to be approved.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I could change, so it's, to be read, shall provide a detailed dewatering plan specific to the intended construction needs and methods, which shall be approved by the project engineer and the commission or its agent, if that is.
Okay. So,
So changing this,
and to which?
yes, this, which, yeah, this
Okay.
and to shall be approved, which shall be approved by the project engineer and commission, which is consistent with the dewatering plan.
Okay,
The
because-
language in the dewatering plan.
Because we still need, when we get the builder, there's still a part of the picture that they've got to provide. Okay, so yeah, I'm fine with your rewording. I just,
Are we gonna require them to plant grass if any to stabilize areas, even though the plan says gravel? Because condition 36 says, any ground disturbed during any phase of the project shall be seeded and stabilized with a seed mixture.
Gravel seed.
We're not requiring that, right? I mean,
yeah, I hear.
that's just leftover grass.
I mean, if we remove that first sentence and says the disturbed area shall be stabilized within the same.
That would be good.
Yep.
All right, okay.
Take out the seeding and the seed mix.
I have a question. So the gravel, how are you gonna prevent vegetation from growing there?
I believe there's actually a, like a
Weed block?
underneath it already.
Okay,
Yeah. And
hand weeding.
Spend time gardening.
Yeah.
Okay, any more comments or questions on the order of conditions? Matt, anything more?
Questions from the audience?
Can I have a motion to issue the order of,
Questions from the audience?
oh,
Questions from the audience?
yep, sorry. Any comments or questions on this from members of the commission, members of the audience? Nope. Okay. So can I have a motion to issue the order of conditions as amended?
so moved,
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
so moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. All set, we're done? Okay, thank you all
Okay.
very much.
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next 7:05 PM agenda item, the certificate of compliance request for 45 Village View Road.
Good evening, Nick Pollock from Goldsmith Preston Ringwall, long time no see. As you mentioned, we're requesting the certificate of compliance for the work at 45 Village View Road. This was the property that had a retaining wall that needed to be removed, an area be restored, and then a boulder slope was installed. So the plan shows a lot of lines, and of course is pretty faded. The picture's maybe a little bit better, but actually that one's pretty good, Matt. Nice shot. So here was actually the old cinder block wall here. That was removed and boulders were placed in. If you recall, there was large ledge and boulders in this general area. So from the pictures, this is the top row of boulders that was relocated outside the 30-foot. The 30-foot is right here, and then as it comes down, with this area being revegetated. Also, this is the existing house. Driveway is just off right here. This was the drip edge. This is actually was supposed to be 2 feet. They made it 4+, where the runoff comes down, gets into this to infiltrate, and then overflows over the grass. And then lastly, there was a roof drain. That's this line with the RD that originally came and poked right through the wall towards the wetlands. That was actually cut back here outside the 30-foot buffer and rerouted over to this area where the outlet box was. Initially, the outlet box was gravel to the surface. but due to its location, it actually discharges between these two boulders. So they were able to actually stabilize and have grass grow over the top of that as well. And there's a couple of pictures that I think are a little bit better. So this is the view looking down with the box here. You can see the erosion control, and then this is all the restabilized area. And then this is a similar view, but just taking more of the view of the stabilized area, or the revegetated area, I'm sorry.
And the erosion control, did receive an email from the property owner this morning. The erosion control has been removed and disposed of,
Okay.
along with the orange construction fence.
No further questions?
No further questions?
Nope.
Questions from the audience?
Are there any questions from the audience?
Stepping her mother.
Thank you.
So can I have a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for DEP file number 334-1804?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And moving on to our next 7:05 PM agenda item, a minor modification request for 12 Castle Road.
Good evening. Nick Pollock from Goldsmith Preston Ringwall. Nice to see you all. As you mentioned, I think it was last fall.
Should we talk about, never mind. Go ahead.
Let him go first.
I think it was last fall we came before you for the proposed demolition of a single-family house with the reconstruction, and we talked about moving the septic system around the property. Since then, it's now under construction, and during that construction, or actually during the initial permitting, there was some discussion about some water within an electrical box. And Mrs. This is here, great. There's the abutter, brought it up, and we said, you know, it's something that when we get into construction, we would certainly not want water in our electricity either. And now that it's under construction, they were able to remove a little bit of vegetation. It created quite the situation to see, which I thank the commission
We all
for
went out.
coming out.
We all went out.
It was very interesting, and I appreciate you all taking the time. These pictures and descriptions and things don't do just standing there and watching the water break out of the ground justice. So what we found is, this is the electrical box, which I still haven't opened it. I still want to, but the bottom part of this electrical box is just gone. It's just rusted out. On I think it was Thursday or Friday that I went out with the commission, I actually showed the commission, I put my foot right around here and actually caused just a new spring to come out and run across the pavement, which you can see the depression of water, and just the amount of water that's causing these ripples was amazing. So what we've done is we've done two things in the proposed modification plan that we've submitted. The first is we've proposed, just a quick, here's the existing electrical box here. What we've proposed is to create a depression and put a low concrete drywall structure surrounded by stone in. The reason for this is essentially to create a low spot for that groundwater that's currently breaking out to collect. Then what we also have is an overflow pipe that comes down and discharges into this adjacent wetland. This adjacent wetland, generally flows from the hill from left to right into an existing culvert here right below a tree underneath the driveway into a manhole in Mrs. Harkness's front yard, and then continues and discharges to the wetland system back here. This system, this dry well, will also proposing to put a surface grate on it so that any breakout that happens further upslope comes down, generally gets directed into the depression, and then allows it to fall into the inlet grate, which allows it to then, you know, continue down into a collected system to get into the wetland. This is all designed to collect and redirect the water into the wetland. The depression is also, these grades are also done in a fashion where it would overflow and continue towards the wetland. You can see the elevation at 223.6 before it continued across the driveway as it's currently doing, go and then surface flow across Mrs. Harkness's front yard. One other thing that we did on this, and if you remember during our original permitting, we did talk about the repaving of the drive. And we excluded that from our original permitting, stating that if we wanted to come back and repave the drive, we would come back and ask for it as a minor modification. In discussions with the client and the construction manager, due to the earthwork that's happening here, we felt might as well ask to repave the driveway in kind. What we're asking for is actually to repave the driveway all the way from the cul-de-sac, all the way up to the current part, but in doing so, as the commission requested, these three contours here, what we're actually doing is reversing the pitch of the driveway. Currently, if you remember, I was telling you that from the slope of the front yard, surface runoff came down, hit the driveway, and then generally flowed directly across the driveway, down the slope into this wetland on Mrs. Harkness's yard. What we're able to do is we're trying to maintain the grades on the right-hand side and then just digging in the pavement for this stretch. This tree may have to go, but these two would be protected and remain. And that will allow the driveway, the surface runoff in the drive to come down and be redirected into here. That will come down into a reinforced shoulder and then ultimately get into the depression that we're also proposing to attenuate prior to continuing onto the resource area.
The electrical box stays where it is.
Thank you for bringing that up. That is one more point. Ideally, this is, well, this not ideally, but this is where the existing electrical box is.
And it was flooded.
It is flooded. So this plan is doing two things, just because unfortunately, I don't know if any of you have had the great pleasure of dealing with the utility company. We would like to request that they move the electrical box to the south and put that on a concrete pad that's further out. I didn't want to rely on the design of this system to handle the groundwater breakout on that electrical box being moved. So yes, ideally, we would love to have that transformer moved to the south, which would allow this to move or even expand adjacent to the driveway.
You're saying ideally, you expect problems that someone's not gonna do that?
Yes.
Who knows?
Well, he's dealing with utility, he can't say, he can't guarantee anything.
But I mean, wouldn't that be one of the first things we'd find out before we did anything else?
So
So that we're
dealing
not-
with the
so we're
electrical.
not- I know, but just so we're not put in a bind where we have
Oh,
to do something.
yes,
You
yep.
know, I'd wanna get my ducks in order as much as I
So,
could.
yes, it is something that's currently, there's two separate tickets relative to that box that's currently into the electric company. One is actually for Mrs. Harkness due to the water in it. The second one is actually for the new connection that will go to the new house. Two different departments, who gets to it first?
But
we
in
don't-
order of priority,
Mhm.
I would want that done before I would want some other things done.
That would
That
be.
we don't
ideal,
get caught in a bind.
I
Where we
understand.
say, gee, we wish we could have, and we would have.
Mhm.
It's called, we can't go forward unless we correct this. That's what I would wanna see.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess the one question I would have is if we're waiting on the utility to come out and do this, does that mean that you really can't work the rest of the solution in this area?
I think that we will get an answer relatively soon, and it may be an indirect answer. And what I mean by that is that the electric service currently comes up and comes over. And all that conduit comes to this, and then there's branches that come off of it that serve the former house as well as Mrs. Harkness's. If the new connection people may be more responsive, come out and say, to take this and move this 5 feet, 10 feet, it's gonna be 3 years and $20,000 or something like that for the reworking of that conduit and the pulling of Mrs. Harkness's and things like that. I don't think anyone's interested in that, and I think that's gonna be the answer that.
So the short answer is,
How do we
we
protect?
can't, there's no way to dictate to the utility what you do and when you do it.
Correct. The only thing that I think we can dictate is that it's underwater now, it's a problem, you need to fix it. And that's either going to be taking the existing one out and putting the concrete structure here and leaving it exactly where it is, which our design works around, or it moves out of the way and our design is allowed to be, you know, this depression here is allowed to expand. We wouldn't have to move the utility or the dry well, excuse me, around it.
So we can't dictate to the utility what the solution will
Is there any
be.
way for us to put pressure on them?
If you find that out, I won't
But I
know.
mean,
I'm
in
sorry.
lieu of that,
But I'm
Yeah.
asking
No.
because I don't want it to be that, gee,
Yeah.
we're so sorry, we couldn't. And then Angela's sitting with a
at least in
flooded-
lieu of that, I mean, he is stopping the water from going across the street by, you know, putting in the depression, then he has the outlet structure that discharges it, you know, to
It was a
the
lot of
different
water
wetland
there,
area
though.
without, oh, I was there too, I saw it. But I'm saying he's taken that into account right now, whether or not, you know, that utility box gets changed.
So we either have a good or a better, depending on what the utility agrees to do?
Yes.
Jim?
It's gonna require a call to dig safe, no matter whether they move it first or move it later. But it would look to me that the underground cabling from that box to the new dwelling would interfere with your drainage system.
So that's actually the existing line, the former line that came up to the existing house.
Yeah.
So that would actually just run up this way. Same with the gas line. There's actually a gas stub that has to be cut back to the main, and then those would run up this way and then take a left.
How do you know it's gonna run up that way if it, I mean,
Is
currently?
that we do have the ability to say, this is where it's going. We don't have the ability to say where this goes with certainty, but the route of the gas line and the route of the conduit of the electric from that, the contractor does have the ability to say.
So where's the electric turned off now? Is it all dead, all that underground stuff?
Yeah.
All the way out to the circle?
No, to
Just
the
to that-
transformer.
Just of the transformer?
Yeah, and that was all done when they pulled the demo permit for the existing house.
And the feed to the existing box comes from, there's nothing there.
Right, it comes from this circle, which is right along the driveway,
It comes
this way.
along the driveway?
Yeah.
All right. So they should be able to mark that for you, so
Yeah.
before you put in your perforated pipe and the new drainage structure,
Yes.
you should guarantee that way they're separated.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's an open dig safe ticket. These guys are actually flagged. You know, the former gas line is actually flagged for, that's how they knew where to cut it up, and yes.
We'll get a copy of that.
The,
The dig safe ticket, if you'd like it. Sure.
I'd like.
okay, I'll include, when I get it, I'll put it in the meeting packet.
I have a question, but I'm waiting for him to finish writing.
Oh, no, I
Okay,
multitask.
so with the dry well that you're digging, you were able to calculate out basically, in most circumstances, how big it needs to be to hold the water you anticipate getting? I mean, I
Did you
see.
size it? Is that what you're wanting to
Yeah,
make sure?
well, it just, yeah, I'm kind of curious. I see that you've got an overflow mechanism, but I'm also just wondering, you know, did you size it so hopefully the overflow doesn't ever come into play?
No.
No, okay.
Yeah, with groundwater, it's hard to quantify.
Okay.
So the sizing of this specific structure was actually due to something that would support a vehicle if it did go off the driveway
Okay,
in the lowest profile. So this is actually called a low boy dry well. It has it's 2 feet of concrete with a 6-inch top. So there's an 18-inch void that is 8 by 6, I believe.
Okay.
That will have 1 foot of stone around it. This isn't really a vessel or a volume that we're looking to ensure that we have. This is more of a low area to control that breakout in that area and then allow it to direct
So its purpose is intercepting as opposed to
Correct.
retaining?
Right.
Okay. Matt, you have any comments or questions?
I did not.
Comments or questions from the audience?
Hello, Angela Harkness. So first, thank you very much for all the
Problem.
work that you've done and everybody for paying attention to this issue. I know that one of the solutions that was proposed, starting out with the idea that nothing is a guarantee, but one of the solutions that was proposed was a curtain drain. And the reason I've focused primarily on that in my email to the commission is that this is all being done on my property now, this new well. And I guess one of the things I'd want to know is, is there going to be a written easement? Is it gonna characterize who's responsible in the event of a problem? You know,
So,
questions.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yep.
So I did leave the easements off of this plan, but there's actually 2 existing easements right now. One of them centers, he's going. One of them actually centers over the driveway. This one right here, that's actually a driveway and utility easement,
yep.
which already lays out. And I would consider this part of the utility, as it's protecting the electrical service. The second one is actually a drainage easement here, and you can see that this is the wetland line as it's crept up. That drainage easement was actually originally placed there to allow the runoff from
To
that
go into the
wetland to
swale.
go into the culvert.
Yeah.
And then this is actually the manhole here, and
Yeah.
then you can see as it continues over. So I know this is hard and zoomed in significantly, but if Matt goes back to the plan view, thank you very much, Matt. If you go back to the plan view, looking at right here, this pipe, there's a 4-foot section from about right there to the end of that that's actually outside of the easement. So all of this work is actually already within an easement that has the setup for the benefit of access and utility for number 12 across your property.
Okay, it's just a much greater use of that easement than has ever been made before. If you're putting in a significant well, it's a much greater burden on that easement than ever existed before. I mean,
Understand that, and then
Yeah.
from the curtain drain standpoint, the
Yeah.
curtain drain would be here,
yeah,
which would be completely outside the easement.
yeah. But significantly on the other property, on 12, as opposed to on my property.
This is the property line, it actually runs perpendicular.
Yeah, and
So-
where are you saying the curtain drain would be? At the bottom there?
Yeah.
Okay,
So basically with the issue, this is the electrical box with the juniper currently around
Yep.
there.
yeah,
Trying to focus our efforts in mitigation around that juniper. That's all
right,
there. So, and then the other problem with let's try the curtain drain, and then let's try the dry well, and then let's try that costs significantly more money and time. The mobilizations of the contractor, the coming back to the commission of, that didn't work, now we're gonna try this.
And the length of time it may take to determine that it hasn't worked?
Right, and that's kind of open to interpretation, so.
so if I understand correctly, then what you're proposing, you can do before, or even if they don't move the electrical box, because I have worked with National Grid, and it definitely could take 3 years.
Correct. So that's why we've left the electrical box where its current location is, and installed or proposed the grading and the installation that's around the current existing box. With the pie in the sky, we would really like to move it over here with, as we kind of talked
Yep.
about in the field, this is your driveway.
And
so
on a
allow it
pad.
Back up. And then what this also does is allows us, this 324 actually raises the grade in that area
Okay,
to create a hump to
Yep.
ensure that this water doesn't keep going this way.
yeah. And when all of this is done, I'm sorry to keep asking questions, if that's okay. When all of this is done, working within the existing easements, what will be done to put the property back to its pre-existing condition or something acceptable or close to that?
So the conditions that the commission removed from 2 agenda items before are active in the 12 Castle, which means that anything that we disturb has to be fine graded, loamed and seeded and stabilized before the order of conditions is signed off on.
Okay.
Nick, just to,
Yes, sir.
because I know we discussed this, the 4-foot socked perforated pipe, is that in a stone trench or is that just kind of in existing soils?
4-inch, 4 foot would be.
4-inch, yeah,
That would
sorry.
be awesome.
Yeah.
Be a lot of water. The 4-inch, it's a sock perforated pipe. That's actually trying to attempt to act as the curtain drain. That is gonna be in porous materials in that it be backfilled as a typical pipe in clean sand. But it will not be gravel to the surface or something identifiable. We're trying to have the look and the appearance of the depression in the dry well being the main source of collecting any of the water. We're trying not to advertise, something gravel going over towards the wetlands.
No, but I think it was just the area around the 4-inch perforated pipe will also, if the groundwater there ends up, it may
Cut
work
it off.
similarly to, kind of creating a void, creating an area where.
It should create a path of least resistance, yes. That will, any water that's moving this way,
Will end up in the swale.
that comes back and be directed towards the wetlands, yes. All subsurface was.
When work is completed like this, do we ever have any, like an inspection a year later to see if what they were doing works?
I mean, usually it's we get an as-built for,
So if
that it
there-
was installed and, even.
This was the expectation, and then if there's a breakout or something doesn't work properly?
I actually just had, I'm sorry.
okay.
One of the things I meant to do, and trying to get this to you quickly, is this actually, dry well should be added to the operation and maintenance plan that we've produced for the house. There's 3 recharge chambers for roof that the owner is responsible for maintaining on his own property. I don't see why we can't add the dry well area to that operation
Someone
and
would sign
maintenance.
off on that, so we.
There's a
have check-
document that
Just so there's
says-
a check and balance.
Right, there's a
So if there was
responsibility
problem, We could ask
associated.
for that document
Yeah.
to see if it had been maintained, okay.
But you're talking about ongoing maintenance,
Correct, in the future.
so
Yeah, but-
in perpetuity.
Yep.
Well, she's gonna live for in perpetuity, so.
No, but,
Isn't that nice?
so when your kids take over the house.
Yeah, they love it.
So that there's a reference,
Yeah.
so that there's something this was supposed to be done. Yes, it was done. Oh, well, we have a different problem then, or something like that.
Yes, I would like some way of coming back if it doesn't work.
And
Because,
you would have the right to, I'm sure, to ask, in a year or so, what was the results? Is this working? Before there's a really big
I
problem.
think she sees it every time she leaves her
I'm
property.
sure
Every
she
time.
does. Or invites us over. Then we see it.
yeah,
Okay,
Right.
that answers my question.
thank you.
And there's a strong incentive for the new homeowners also, because if it doesn't work and there's water flowing across the road, the access roadway, and it freezes up, their house is.
not very good for them.
Their house is inaccessible, and it's like
Yeah.
a skating rink then.
It's really, right now, there's a big puddle across the whole driveway now. It's worse than when you guys.
Forward to February,
Yes,
freezes up,
Yeah.
so.
We can't build into order of conditions or anything to periodic check.
I mean, I can.
So when I revise the operation and maintenance plan, it will have the schedule that it will
Okay.
be inspected, so
Okay.
I would look at the grate being inspected twice a year seasonally, just to make sure it leaves grass clippings.
Before you see a
Yep.
real problem.
Yep.
Okay. And you should have a copy of that too,
yes, thank you.
Sure.
please.
Thank you again.
No worries.
Okay.
Any more comments or questions? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minor modification request for 12 Castle Road?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, that brings
No, no.
my time.
I'm sorry, it's a tricky
You can stick
property.
around, I'm sure.
This is a very big upgrade. I missed the big remote though, so. Thank you again. Have a great night.
Okay. So moving on to our 7:10 PM agenda item, public hearing for Dirk's, 64 Lakeshore Drive South.
Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, September 27th, 2023, at 7:10 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application of Jeffrey and Elizabeth Dirks for the replacement of an approximately 80-foot-long existing staircase to be installed with helical piers within 100 feet of Nandasset Lake and bordering land subject to flooding at 64 Lakeshore Drive South.
Take it away. My name's Jeff Dirks. Thank you for having us here.
And Buffy Dirks, otherwise known as Elizabeth.
It was exactly 1 year ago tomorrow that we came before the commission asking for approval for 2 projects on our lakefront property on Nandasset Lake. Project number 1 was the removal of some dead trees down by the water, and project number 2 was replacement of an old rotted out deck dating back to 1985. All that work was completed earlier this year, but we're back tonight to seek approval of the 3rd and final thing that we'd like to do on the waterfront, which is to replace the vintage 1968 concrete steps down the slope with a new staircase that will meet current code and be a lot safer and easier for us to traverse. I have 3 photos and the surveyor's plan, so I'll just talk through each photo a little bit quickly to give you the feeling of the issues. The first photo shows you something about how steep the concrete staircase is. It's a 37-foot vertical drop from the chain link fence down to the water. If you were trying to get down to the water, it would stay there for just a sec, thanks. If you were trying to get down to the water, you'd go straight down the steps. Before you get to the kayak, you'd angle 45 degrees to the left and take a few paces to be right on the shorefront. In the upper left-hand part of the picture, it's going to be hard to see. The new deck is right there, filtered through the trees, and I have a good picture in a minute of the new deck taken down there. The key thing about this project is that vehicular access is impossible. Every tool, every piece of material, every piece of equipment is going to have to be hand carried from the street around our house and down the stairs here, because there's no way to get anything else there. The new stairs will be on top of, we're not going to go somewhere else to try and come down the hill. They'll just follow the same alignment right down here. And they will be on top of the existing stairs. We're not going to remove the existing stairs, but just go over the top of them. And photo number 2 is looking up from the bottom of the concrete walkway. This photo does a little better job of showing you some of the irregularities of the step heights, how some of the concrete, especially in the lower part, is cracked. On the right-hand side, there's an old steel railing, part of which was crushed when a tree fell across it eons ago, and it hasn't been replaced. Much of that railing is like too low for some people, at least for me it is, so we're looking forward to getting rid of that and have one that meets code. The next photo, last photo, number 3, is the waterfront showing the deck as you would see it now. Thank you very much for approving that. We like it very much down there. The end of the staircase is just to the left, just out of view. The materials that are shown here in this photo are exactly the same as what we would be using on the rest of it, the same type of composite boards, same type of aluminum black railings and balusters. If we can go to the surveyor plan, which is there. Just a few points there. The north is to the left on here, just so don't get confused by that. The red line shows the location of the new stairs coming from behind the house, taking an angle and going a few paces down from there. Notice the short red line segment, the shortest one over there, is a connection between the new stairs and the deck. We don't actually know if we want to do that or not. It's frighteningly expensive to do something that looks rather small, but I did want to call it out here on the plan just so it wouldn't surprise anybody if we do go ahead with that. The foundation for the landings will use helical piers. I guess they're called foundation screws in some places. There was a catalog cut back that showed that. Our builder has already, yep, that's it. You can see the little auger right at the bottom that kind of screws into the earth as you rotate it. Our builder met with the Westford Building Department about that, and they have okayed that approach. Evidently, it's fairly commonly used on the south side of Nabnasset because all of those houses there are so far above the water. Can't really get anything else in there besides that. The builder also asked us to request your permission for the red square there, which is a temporary platform freestanding for storage of tools, equipment, materials, probably just because it'll be easier to have stuff down there than have to come up by the house all the time.
It's a temporary piece?
Temporary, it's freestanding, it's just plywood and 2x6s, and it would be removed.
It's temporary, that's what I'm saying.
Right, it would be removed at the end of the work. That's basically it. Our application also had a 16-point list of work tasks and a list of mitigation measures and so on. Matt, what have I forgotten that's
I
important?
think there's nothing that I could. The
Pretty clean.
two resource areas are the edge of Nabnasset Lake and the 100-year flood zone, and as the preliminary plan is the more this property showing the effective firm map had the flood elevation almost up to, I think it was 193 feet. It's just the effective map is wrong, and the 171 line is down this way, beyond the edge of work. So work in the buffer, both for the act and work in the buffer under the bylaw as well.
Jim?
When you spoke with the building department or the building commissioner, did that include discussions on railings for the staircase?
I wasn't there, but what I understand regarding the railings is that we're proposing to have 4-foot wide steps going down, and it's okay to have a single railing, which would be on the left-hand side in our case.
I just want to make sure it's okay with the building department, because I don't know these regs. And in the same vein, platforms every so many steps. I mean, they don't want 100 steps in a row. Usually they limit it to 10 or 13 or something like that.
Yep,
So
the
there'll be some
builder,
platforms.
we will have landings. The builder is going to have to figure out some of this as he does it, because we don't know what the subsurface conditions are. There may be some places where he can't get the pier down where he wants to. But he estimates that there will be 5 to 7 landings, and that it would be 13 to 16 steps
And that's okay with the building
between.
department?
And, well, it better be, because this is going to go there for approval, but is.
Well, this plan doesn't
that's-
tell you how many steps in between or anything like that.
Well, it's not showing me, it's just
Right.
telling me where they're gonna put it, but it's
Right.
not giving me
So
more
I
of
just
the
want to make sure
detail.
that when you get this built, that the building department gives you the thumbs up afterwards.
Right. I mean, they will be, the next step is to file a building, an application with the
Okay.
building department
Alright.
to, with which I'm sure the building commissioner will review
I'm
for all
good with
applicable.
the wetlands impact.
codes,
It's
right.
just going right where the old one was, and it'll be improvement, it'll
I
be
don't
great.
have any trouble.
Um,
Those steps certainly look like not something I want you to be negotiating.
So, when
I'm
you
the
were
only
talking,
one who's actually fallen so far. Buffy's now.
So
good.
far.
That would be me.
so you were talking about the railing along the side, and you had mentioned the railing that's around on that deck landing. What's the distance between the uprights on that? I'm just wondering,
I think it's 4 inches. I think building code's 4 inches,
Okay.
which, and again, they got a building permit for that as well, so.
no, but my concern is wildlife passage across the side of the slope.
So, as kind of the existing, go back up to these, it's not a uniform pitch, so there will be areas that are higher up, where the proposed stairs will be higher than, you know,
Okay,
if
so
a.
squirrels, et cetera, can go
Yeah,
They can
underneath.
go
Okay.
underneath.
The woodland critters
Yeah.
will be able to pass underneath it, yes.
Okay,
I'm certain of that.
okay. You have any questions?
Nope, my only condition, if the commission so pleases, would be to require that prior to the certificate of occupancy, that the confirmation be provided that the temporary platform has been removed.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the audience? Okay, so can I have a motion to issue a conditional negative determination?
So moved. That's a positive.
Second.
We learned.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you.
Be in touch tomorrow.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Yeah, okay. So, moving on to our 7:15 PM agenda item, continued public hearing for 29 Kais Road. The applicant has requested a continuance without discussion to October 11th, 2023.
Okay.
So can I have a motion to continue?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then our next 7:15 PM agenda item, a request to remove broken pine tree from wetland, Village at Stone Ridge Condominium Association.
So the association reached out to me at the end of last week, and I was able to stop out and meet with the representative yesterday afternoon. There is a significantly tall live pine tree. This actually, I think, does a pretty good job of showing the broken pine tree here, which has made its way from the shoreline to the existing beaver dam at the culvert going underneath Stone Ridge Road. They requested to remove it as they currently have a beaver flow control device in, and want to make it a little bit harder for the beavers to improve the dam that has been built around the culvert. They were able to provide some photos from some historical photos that shows, you know, the beaver dam and the flow control device being implemented, and where this to be, if this wasn't in a wetland resource itself, I likely would have administratively approved, you know, the removal of it. But where it is, you know, it did fall into a wetland resource, and typically the commission, you know, if it fell naturally, you know, it's a part of the ecosystem. Certainly beaver concerns, you know, we want to make sure that the beaver, the flow control device
Is functioning properly.
exactly. And in speaking with the representative, the plan, the tree that fell is close to the roadway. A crane would be used to remove the portion which fell into the wetland, and I was told that, you know, a standing, you know, where it broke off, you know, the portion still that is upright, you know, should be left to remain so that it's provides some habitat value as it decomposes. There is another dead tree, pine tree, as shown here, that they did ask about, and it hasn't fallen yet. So I
Just gonna leave it be.
until, you know.
Yeah.
But they certainly are concerned about it, you know, particularly with, you know,
So let's have a motion to move the tree.
Do I have a motion to approve the request to remove the broken pine tree from wetlands?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to discussion and action items.
The Broken Stony Brook Trail Memorial Bridge, I was able to follow up with the vendor after the last commission's meeting. They are a little bit delayed in receiving they're stones, but they anticipate it, you know, we're certainly next in the queue, and we'll follow up just to remind them that, you know, we are,
We'll keep asking.
yes, we'll keep asking, you know, to get it resolved.
Who's the vendor?
Leominster
Leominster Monument Company.
Monuments.
Thanks.
So we'll contact him again before the next.
Yeah,
Good, good.
probably Friday afternoon. It's usually a good time to follow up with people. Get it for the next week. Get it for the meeting back.
Unrelated to this vendor, the Air District Court has been having a lot of appearances on the docket of J.T. Smith from the Westford company that's had so many problems.
I had the problem too, so.
So those things are, they're working their way through the various courts.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for telling me.
Stony Brook Conservation Area, user concern and follow-up. This week, Eric and I got an email from a member of the public. She had watched our Conservation Commission meeting of 2 weeks ago. And they have been regularly using both Stony Brook Conservation Area and the beaches at Nab Lake. And she had said that she had seen large gatherings, both at East Boston camps and at Nab Lake. She didn't notice any of the prohibited activities we've been talking about, but with the way we talked last time and talking about large gatherings, we weren't specific about that the problem was the prohibited activities rather than the large gatherings, because the takeaway that she had was if there were large gatherings, that should be reported on. And so I emailed back to her and said, no, it's not the size of the gathering, it's the prohibited activities, you know, and we asked that people call the non-emergency line so that the police can send an officer down, and then they can write citations for whatever they observe. So I think when we're having conversations that we know somebody is going to be able to watch later on, we need to be very, sometimes we need to be sure we're precise, so if somebody's not familiar with the
I
issue,
wouldn't have thought of that
Yeah.
in actuality, you know, I mean, certainly if we think about it, we can clarify it.
so yeah, it's not the gatherings themselves, it's the prohibited activities that
Right.
we really want to address. And so it just, you know, it's, some of it is, we may not be used to the fact that we're on TV. And so we need to be clear, so that people know what message
We can take that, you know, and keep it in our minds, so going forward, if we have another kind of discussion, we can bring that up.
Yes. So,
The only way I see us using it.
okay.
Great.
Anything else on the follow-up? No. Okay. Edwards Conservation Area.
Yes, I've been following this very closely, taking pictures periodically. I was actually walking Pepper down the road, down to the end of Hemlock, and the very last house on the left, there was a woman with a big pile of brush, and she saw me and I saw her, and she kind of put it down on her property. And it's no longer on her property, it is now in the resource area. And the picture of the this tree was freshly pruned on the same day that a big brush pile of the same tree appeared in the resource area. And that is what I have to report this week. Is there anything we can do about this?
So I did look at your comment about the property, and they weren't included in a 100-foot buffer to the original kind of letter blast. It
Didn't
was
get the
to
memo?
Well, it literally didn't. You know, I think they're outside the 100, but they're inside the 200, and I've been able to cross-reference the list of. So we'll just send some more to
Thanks, Matt.
additional people, and you know, and especially this time of year, this, you know, where people are doing yard cleanups and things like that. I may actually just resend it to everybody, and you know, inside 250 feet of just, please be aware, don't do this.
Where are we with the DPW?
DPW still working with. I haven't.
Okay. Any thought on a temporary fence with a sign saying restoration in process?
We can certainly find some construction, or you know, some chicken fencing or whatever. some for just get some fencing and process and some, get assignment. We
Thanks.
can do that for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Cloverleaf Lane enforcement order follow-up.
I do not have any, I have not made progress on this
Okay,
personally.
okay. So, yeah, because I think that enforcement order and the one for Spalding Hill, or Spalding Estates, whatever it is, I think we need to keep them on the list because those are two serious violations and we just,
Right, and Spalding, you know, I can certainly add to the next meeting agenda to follow up, to make sure that the enforcement order and the required actions have been complied with, and if not, what the next steps are.
okay, good. And then also the Summer Village Conservation Restriction Amendment follow-up.
That, the commission reviewed draft amendment language a couple years ago. I'm not sure if I'm working with the developer's new attorney to to file the amendment. That's
Okay, so we're dealing with, at this point, we're dealing with a new attorney.
a new attorney, but I think we can use the same language with which was
Okay,
previously reviewed.
but so the task has actually been handed off to somebody else essentially.
I'm confirming that it's been handed out.
Well, yeah, okay, so
I'm
we
finding
just-
somebody who's going to do it.
Okay, so this is another one that we want to keep it on the list to make sure it doesn't eventually fall through the cracks. Sir, you've been sitting here very patiently.
I'm here, I'm just listening.
You're just listening, okay. I didn't know if you were, excuse me?
I'm about to leave.
Oh, okay.
We're not rushing you to leave.
No.
We just want to be sure that
Sometimes
we
people
had
sit here very
something.
patiently, and they've got something to say or something to ask.
I have no business.
You have no business, okay. Then moving on to the minutes of September 13th. Have people had a chance to review them?
Good to me.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay. I did have one editorial correction, bottom of page 3, the second to last paragraph, at the end, it talks about that I had concern about sufficient room for snow, and actually, my concern was sufficient room for snow plowing, so that, you know, that we talked about room for cars, pedestrians, plantings, and I just wanted to make sure that when the town plows the road, there's enough room for them to get the snow off the roadway. Okay,
And so you revise it to say, and snow plowing?
plowing, yeah,
Just want to clarify.
okay. So no other changes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for September 13th, 2023 as amended?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
And one abstention.
Okay. Thank you.
Before we, or any adjournment?
Well, okay, so no site visits,
I mean, if we want to record the site visit that.
12
all-
Castle?
At 12
Yeah,
Castle?
The entire commission over 2 days was able to make it out and review the existing
I actually got to.
groundwater breakout. All commission over 2 days.
Okay. Jim?
Thinking back about Bridge Street and we got the order of conditions and all that done, there was still some requirements in there for lists of what's prohibited and or what's allowed in those steel structures that were moved, because they're still not outside the buffer area. They're still in the buffer zone, and we don't know. We heard verbally that there's no petroleum products and insecticides and oils and that kind of stuff, but we don't know what's in writing to the tenants.
I'll follow up with that and add that as a discussion item for the commission.
Okay,
So you'll ask him to provide the,
whatever he provided to his tenants.
okay, that makes sense.
What he told us verbally sounded good. I just want to make sure that it gets all the way to the end users of the property.
Okay. Any other? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.